The bathroom floor was cold against my cheek, and my hip felt heavy and sore. I tried to push myself up, pressing my palm into the hard grout, but my hand slid a little, and my body didn't follow. Water from the shower head kept dripping, making small round splashes beside me. Each drop sounded louder than the last. "Tessa!" I called out. My voice bounced around the tiles and came back to me, thin and shaky. I heard footsteps in the hallway. They slowed, then stopped. The door opened just a little. Tessa stood there with her phone in her hand. She looked at me, sighed like I was bothering her, and walked away before I could lift myself off the floor. Ever needed help and the person you trusted just turned away like you were not there? If you know that feeling, take a moment to like this video and hit subscribe so you don't miss stories like this. And if you believe care should go both ways, type respect in the comments. I'm going to tell you how I handled what happened next without shouting or fighting. Just the truth said in a steady way. I'm Mariah Ellis, and I'm 68 years old. I was a school librarian for most of my life, the kind who remembered which child liked books about space and which one liked animals. Even now, I still act like someone who keeps a small library running. At the community center, I straighten the books without thinking. At home, I sort my receipts by date and keep them in a little tin box in the kitchen drawer. My purse hangs on the bathroom door hook because that's where it has always been. And when I walk past the doorway, I bend down and line up the shoes neatly, even if it's only 2 pairs. These little routines make me feel steady. I enjoy simple days, a cup of tea in the afternoon, the radio playing softly, a clean hallway, and a quiet evening. I don't ask for much. I don't want drama or big surprises. I just want my children to visit because they want to see me, not because they need something. I raised them to be strong, but I also hoped they would still be gentle when they came home. My daughter Tessa is 38. She moves through my house like she's checking how fast she can get in and out. She gives quick hugs at the door, smiles for a second, and then she starts looking around with fast eyes, tapping her nails on the counter, shifting her weight like she's already thinking of the next place she needs to be. Her kindness comes in short bursts. After that, she's focused on her own troubles. My son Daniel is 42. He works in another city and we don't see each other as often as I'd like. But our talks are clearer now. He doesn't pretend. He speaks in a straight line, even when it's not easy to hear. That honesty feels solid. My house has its own little sounds and smells. The lemon cleaner lingers in the hallway because I wipe the counters every morning. The wooden floor creaks in the same 2 spots every time I walk to the kitchen. The kettle whistles at 4 in the afternoon, even on days when I forget I turned it on. And the TV stays on low volume most evenings because the quiet can feel too big. When Tessa visits, the routine is always the same. A quick hug, a fast walk through the kitchen, a glance at the pantry, a sigh when she sits down. She talks about her problems, her stress, her plans that keep failing, and then she leaves before asking how I'm doing. I've grown used to the pattern, even though each visit feels a little shorter than the last one. My soft way and her sharp way never stay balanced for long. Then came the day I fell in the bathroom. I remember it clearly. The floor was wet from the shower. I turned too quickly, and my foot slid. My hip hit the tile hard, and the towel slipped from my hand. My knee touched the floor first, then the rest of my body followed. My phone was on the shelf near the mirror too far to reach. I called out for Tessa. My voice echoed around the tiles. I heard her walking in the hallway, but she didn't come in right away. When she finally opened the door a little, she looked at me, let out a long sigh, and walked off like I was stopping her from something important. I stayed there for a moment, trying to breathe through the pain. Then she came back. She didn't look worried. She didn't kneel or check anything. She just held out her arm and helped me stand, but only for a second. As soon as I found my balance, she let go. She told me to just sit down and left the room again without asking how I felt. Later, when I sat on the edge of my bed, the house felt different. Not louder or quieter, just heavier. I moved slower the rest of the day. I held the railing when I walked down the hall. And that night, I slept with the hallway light on. I didn't say any big words to myself. I didn't need to. I could already feel something changing inside me, even if it didn't have a name yet. The days after the fall were slow. I limped from room to room and kept an ice pack on my hip to dull the ache. I tried to act normal, but every step reminded me of how I ended up on that cold floor. I didn't talk about it. I didn't bring it up. I just moved carefully, hoping my body would settle back into its old rhythm. Tessa came back 2 days later. The door opened fast, and she walked in like she owned the space. She didn't look at my hip or ask if I was all right. She went straight to the counter and tapped her nails, quick and sharp. She talked about her stress, her bills, her bad day at work. She paced while she talked, moving things on the counter so they lined up her way, not mine. She didn't look at the ice pack I held or the way I leaned on the counter to keep weight off my left leg. At one point, she said, "I swear, everything falls on me," like she was the one carrying the world. I stood there, wiping the same spot on the counter again and again, listening to her voice rise and fall. I didn't interrupt. I didn't correct her. I didn't say, "You left me on the floor." I just listened, and something settled inside me. I realized I didn't feel surprised anymore. I felt tired. And that tiredness made everything clearer. This was the moment I stopped brushing things aside. The next day, Tessa started her usual pattern. She softened her voice and acted like she was the only one who ever struggled. She leaned on the counter across from me and said, "I do everything alone." Then, "You don't know how hard it is." She didn't look at my hip or the ice pack resting on the chair. She walked around the kitchen in slow circles, glancing at me each time she passed me, waiting for a sorry or a comforting word. That used to work on me. Many times I gave in and said things like, "It'll be okay," even when I didn't believe it. But this time, I stayed quiet. I didn't argue, and I didn't comfort. I just listened and watched. Later that afternoon, she switched tactics. Instead of acting helpless, she acted in control. She pulled open drawers without asking, moved my pots around, and placed my mail on the table with a heavy slap. The sound of metal pots hitting the stove made the room feel smaller. The cabinets closed louder than normal, and her heels knocked against the floor with each step. She wasn't helping. She was taking over. I stood by the fridge with my arms crossed over my chest. I watched her move things that didn't need moving. I watched her sort mail that wasn't hers to sort. I didn't say a word. I wasn't quiet because I was scared. I was quiet because everything I needed to understand was right in front of me. By evening, she finally dropped what she really came for. She sat at the table, pulled out her empty wallet, and placed it in front of me. Her hands shook a little, but her voice tried to sound firm. "I'm in trouble. I need money again." She didn't ask if she should sit down. She didn't ask if it was a good time. She didn't ask how I was feeling. She just assumed the answer would be yes. "It's urgent," she said. "I need it today." She looked at me like I was the last door she could knock on. I held the edge of the counter and didn't move. She expected me to react fast, like I always did. She expected the yes that usually came before she finished explaining. But that yes wasn't coming anymore. That night, after she went to her room to make calls and complain quietly, I sat in the living room with the lights low. My hip throbbed, but that wasn't what kept me awake. I kept thinking about how easily she walked away when I needed help, and how easily she walked toward me when she needed something. I opened the drawer under the coffee table and pulled out an old photo. It was Tessa, as a small child, wrapped in a blanket, leaning against my shoulder during a fever. I remembered wiping her forehead, holding her close, staying awake all night without thinking twice. That memory stung more now because the care I once gave wasn't being returned. Not even a small piece of it. I took a sheet of lined paper and placed it on the table. I didn't write fancy words. I didn't try to sound strong. I just wrote the truth. I wrote about the fall. I wrote about calling her name. I wrote about the way she sighed and walked away. I wrote about how I felt when she helped me stand like it was an inconvenience. I wrote about the pattern I kept pretending not to see. And then I wrote what stops now. No more ignoring my needs. No more using my kindness like a door that never closes. No more money leaving my hands while my heart gets treated like nothing. I folded the letter and placed the old photo inside it. That little bundle held all the truth I had been swallowing for years. I got up slowly, carried it to the purse hanging on the bathroom door hook, and tucked it inside. That purse was no longer just a purse. It was the mirror she would have to face. If someone ignored you while you were hurt, would you let it slide or would you speak up? Tell me in the comments. Walk or confront? I want to see how you would handle a moment like this. The next morning, the sun came through the kitchen window in a soft line across the table. I moved slowly, but I felt steady inside. I made a cup of tea and sat down with my hands folded. My purse was right beside me on the chair, close enough to touch but not in the way. I kept my eyes on the steam rising from the cup. The house was quiet, and for once, the quiet didn't bother me. It felt like I finally knew what I needed to do. Tessa came in without knocking. Her steps were fast, and she kept rubbing her temples like her head hurt. She didn't look rested. She didn't look calm. She looked like someone trying to hold herself together with very thin thread. She walked back and forth in front of the stove, then stopped and faced me. "Mom, I need money," she said. Her voice cracked on the word need. She tried to clear her throat, but it didn't fix anything. She looked tired and cornered, and for a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. But then I remembered the bathroom floor, the cold tile, and the way she walked out when I could hardly move. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't sigh or shake my head. I just looked at the purse beside me. Then, I looked back at her. "If you need something, check my purse." She blinked like she didn't hear me right the first time. Then she walked over and grabbed the purse quickly, as if she expected a stack of folded bills waiting inside. She opened it with both hands, pulling it wide so she could see everything at once. She stopped moving. Her eyes landed on the photo first. The old picture of her as a little girl, wrapped in a blanket against my shoulder. Then she saw the folded letter sitting right under it. Her breath caught. Her shoulders tensed up like someone had set a weight on them. She didn't reach for the letter. She just stared, frozen in place, as if she wasn't sure what she was looking at or why it hit so hard. She didn't say a word and she didn't need to. The kitchen was quiet except for the hum of the fridge. The morning light didn't reach far inside, so the room felt still and heavy. I sat at the table with my hands flat on the surface, steady and calm. Tessa sat across from me with the letter she had just taken out of my purse. She hadn't opened it when she first found it. She just stared at it like she wasn't sure if she wanted to know what was inside. Her fingers held the folded paper tight, and she kept glancing at me as if waiting for some hint of what it might say. She looked confused, a little defensive, a little scared. I nodded once. "Read it," I said. Her eyes dropped. She opened the letter slowly, the paper making a soft crackle as she smoothed it out. Her hands shook, just enough for me to notice. The first lines were simple, the same simple way I lived. She read the part about the bathroom fall, how I slipped on the wet tile and hit my hip, how I called her name, how she stood in the doorway, sighed, and walked away. She read the part about how she helped me stand like it was a chore, not care. She read about all the years I had tried to be there for her, and how little came back. Her shoulders dropped. Her jaw tightened. Her breath caught in short pieces. She kept reading anyway. She reached the line where I wrote, "You treated my voice like noise." Her eyes blinked fast, and she looked up at me with a face I hadn't seen in years, a face without excuses. Then she read the last line, "I won't live like that again." Silence sat between us like another person in the room. She tried to speak, but the words stumbled out. I didn't mean to. I didn't react. I didn't bend. I didn't fill the silence to make her feel better. "You walked out," I said quietly. She opened her mouth again like she wanted to argue with that, but nothing came out. You didn't ask how I felt. Her eyes dropped. You only ask when you want something. Her face tightened at that one, because she knew it was true. She tried one more time. I helped you up. I did. But her voice was thin, and even she didn't believe it. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't insult her. I just let the truth sit. It did the work by itself. She looked at the photo that had been inside the letter, the picture of her as a little girl lying against my shoulder when she had a fever. She held it like it weighed more than paper. Then she finally understood. There was no money coming. There was no automatic yes. There was no mother she could lean on without giving anything back. The mirror was right there in her hands. I took a breath and spoke clearly. No more money, I said. Her chin dropped. No more staying here without asking. She swallowed hard. No more guilt. Her eyes closed for a second. I reached to the small bowl near the door and picked up the spare key she had once used freely. I placed it beside her on the table. She stared at it like it was a door closing. She stood up slowly. She didn't shout. She didn't slam anything. She walked down the hallway to pack her small bag. I heard the zipper and the soft thump of shoes being set inside. When she came back into the kitchen, her eyes barely met mine. She picked up the key, held her bag close to her side, and left the house without a word. The door clicked shut behind her. I walked over and turned the lock, not out of anger, out of peace. I stood there for a moment, hand on the door, breathing steady. Then I went back to the table and sat down. The house felt quiet, but the quiet wasn't heavy anymore. It was mine again. I went back to my normal days, one small step at a time. I returned to the community center and sat at the book table again, straightening the stacks the way I always did. It felt good to be around people without feeling pulled in too many directions. My hips still ached sometimes, but my steps felt steadier. I didn't rush. I didn't move with fear. I moved with purpose, the kind that comes when you finally choose yourself. Daniel started visiting more often. He brought simple meals, rice, stew, fresh bread, and we ate together at the kitchen table. We talked about work, old memories, and small things that made us laugh. His visits weren't loud or dramatic. They were quiet, kind, and real. The house felt lighter, not because anything changed in the rooms, but because the weight that had been sitting on my chest for years was finally gone. I made a rule for myself. If something costs my peace, it doesn't stay. That rule kept me steady. It kept the house steady, too. I still love my daughter. That part of me doesn't switch off. But loving her doesn't mean losing myself again. Have you ever had to set a boundary with someone you love, even when it hurt? If you have, type "respect my space" in the comments so others know they're not alone. Make sure you like this video, hit subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss what comes next. Our next story is about a son who finds out why his brother wanted the house keys. Tell your story below, I'm listening.